Bobs. Such a beautiful thing. Now you may be wondering, well, what the frick is a Bob? Well, Bobs are a species that kind of live around our realm, to say the least. They could really be doing anything like, well, attending a church for no reason, wearing a cube as a hat for really no reason. Like really though, why does this Bob have a hat? As you would know, just like the human race, the Bob race is everywhere. First, if we're looking at Bobs, we have to go back to the historical timeline of Bobs. The first Bob to ever be made was a Gob. Gobs weren't really that special. They were mostly used in old adventure maps. These are kind of like the very early stages of Bobs. They had a weird human head, they could wave their arms, and that's about it really. And sometimes they would have signs on them, just like Bobs today. But these ones are a bit older in that aspect, but still. After the really boring Gobs that had really nothing to talk about, we're going to go on to something that has a lot to talk about, Robs. Robs are a lot more interesting than Gobs for one main reason. They had two different facial expressions. One could be lit up, one could just be a regular old pumpkin. And these guys had signs on them too, and were used way more in adventure maps. And mainly because they looked a lot more human-ish than the Gobs did. The Gobs really were just all wrong looking. These guys, they pull it off. They are basically they're basically Bobs, just not really. But as we move on, you're gonna see Bobs are just starting to get more and more like Bobs. Next, we move on to Obs. Obs are kind of like Bobs in a lot of ways, more than Robs or Gobs, mainly because they're a redstone component, like Bobs. Here, let's take a look, shall we? Here are Obs. They are way more like Bobs, except for that they don't have the goofy face, so how sad. But these guys are still a treat. Not only do they have two different facial expressions, yet again they have arms, and you can even put stuff inside their heads for like literally no reason, but it's very cool to say the least. I mean, you could hide little Easter eggs inside that head, you could hide a brain, a skull, it's whatever you really want. This is really cool for like little Easter eggs, and sometimes these guys can even like shoot out darts or poison arrows to give you a little more variety with your Bobs. They're very cool, and I really like them. Now Bobs, the main point of this video, and basically the main race of all Bobs, Gobs, and Obs. Bobs, the original. Now here are the originals. Now, you may be wondering, why does the Bob on the left have arms? Well, I'm not going to go over it now, but if you want to see why, I'll probably make a video on Bob anatomy and why this Bob has arms and this one doesn't. Anyway, the one with arms is the older one. Bobs used to have arms, just like the Gobs, Robs, or Obs. But then they eventually realized they didn't need arms, so now we have this new design. Basically the final design for Bobs, right? It's nice, it's clean, you can use whatever block you want on the bottom, any kind of hair, carpet. It's the best looking one for sure. It depends on your preference, but still, I think, in my opinion, the original Bob is probably the best one and the most used one on this realm. But you think we would stop there with the Bobs and Robs and Gobs and all that, right? Well, you're wrong, because there are 3 more different types. Hobs. These are basically baby Bobs. The only goal a Hob has is to eat a block. The reason why? Well, you're gonna have to look at the Bob anatomy video that's coming out soon. But basically, that's their goal, to eat a block. Most of the time, these guys are pretty rare considering, but when you find them, they usually come in little packs of 2 or 3. So, you know, it's fun to find them, but they are kind of hidden compared to Bobs. But, you know, they are babies after all, so you wouldn't see them everywhere. But now, enough about Hobs. It's time to go on to the last 2 species, Bobbies. Now you may be wondering, now what the frick is this? This is literally just a Hob, but smaller. That's because it is. And also, they look like player skulls. That's because they're a mix of Bobs and Gobs. Now, sadly, for Bobbies, there's not a lot to say. They're basically just Hobs, except smaller. So, yeah, it's kind of disappointing to say the least. But they are pretty cute. I mean, just look at their little faces. But enough of the Hobs, because they're pretty boring. But now on to the final species of Bobs. What will it be? Well, let's find out. Gobbies. The final frontier for Bobs. Well, not really, because Bobs can evolutionize whenever they want, but still. These are Gobbies. Gobbies are basically hot Bobbies, but they are on a fence post. These guys are fairly new to the realm, so we don't know much about them. All we know is they're like Bobs, and they can have different colored bodies, and instead of a block, it's a fence from now on. It's nice to have them around, but that's all I have to say about Bobs for now. So if anybody ever tells you that the TNT Yeeters are Bobs, then tell them wrong, and link them to this video. Tell them wrong. Yeah, do that, I guess.